NineTen, NineTen, NineTen in the morning.
Yay.
Yo! Austin has glasses.
9:10. Just pick these suckers up. Amazon.com. Figured
Nice.
should wear them during a video podcast.
Why not?
This is officially our last video podcast. It's our last recording of 2020.
Of 2020.
So this year has been quite strange.
True.
Dating back to March when we filmed. Remember, actually in this room, right here.
Oh.
In this room,
Whoa.
we filmed
Yeah.
the 9:10 in the mornings.
We were facing that way, though.
the very first 9:10 in the mornings.
We're like, this will just get us through the week.
right.
All
that was-
that COVID will
We
last
got the email
us.
that said like, "Hey, we're gonna shut down for 2 weeks. Just a heads up. Like, try to get 2 weeks out video wise." And we
Yeah.
were like, "Okay, cool, 2 weeks." And here we are, 9 months later, rocking it,
Rocking it.
still rocking it,
Absolutely.
which is kind of crazy to think about. But first things first, what? It's Christmas next Friday.
Tis.
That's
Tis
insane.
the season.
5 days away from today is Christmas.
Wow.
That's bananas. And I'm curious. I want to know from you guys what's the thing you're most excited about for Christmas? And like I know because you're both pastors, like
Right.
you're excited for Advent and like
It's a given.
Jesus's birth and stuff. But like,
Absolutely.
what are you excited about physically, tangibly? 'Cause I have my answer.
Okay.
Shallowly.
Yeah,
Okay,
shallowly. What's your like shallow
In the
Christmas?
shallow.
In the shallows. Great movie. Did that come
Incredible.
out this year?
I don't know what movie that is.
Born and Raised. A Star is Born.
A Star is Born.
Born and Raised
Much
is my
like
favorite restaurant.
the
in San
star
Diego.
that the wise men followed
Aw,
to. you know,
Char.
Yeah, just got to
There's
bring
a
it all
movie
back
about
to
the
Jesus.
star. It's an animated one.
A Star is Born? It's Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. It's not
Incredible.
anime.
No, not anime.
What are you most excited about, Char? What's your shallow
Oh,
answer?
my shallow answer
Here, I got you.
is honestly, I was checking the weather today because I'm like, we live in Southern California and this is just so cool that we have sunny Decembers. And so my favorite, it's not that shallow because it's kind of cheesy with my family, but I love, we take a bike ride on Christmas Day. That's my favorite, to the beach up in the good old Orange County. For legal reasons, I'll leave the city out of here. But you never know who's watching.
I collaborated with my lawyer. When I'm in Orange
But yes,
County,
no, I love that.
I can't tell anybody what city I'm at.
Also,
It's a great
again, I'm not trying to sound like a goody two shoes, but I love when you like nail someone's gift. We were kind of talking about this, and they get to open it. Like my parents, they won't watch this. I got them one of those like really sick, non-toxic pans that are non-slippery, and it's this beautiful blue color. And they're getting a new kitchen and everything. And I'm just so stoked to be like, I put my adult money towards this. And I'm so excited for them to open it and then use it. And then my mom will make me great food with it. So there's my selfish answer.
Oh.
Nice. That's pretty good. That wasn't shallow at all.
No, that was good.
I'll think of something more shallow.
I think
Also, wait, can we, just a quick note on the term goody two shoes.
Yeah.
For
I
the
don't really
longest
know what it
time,
means.
I legitimately thought it was like two shoe, like TUSHU, like a two shoe, like a goody two shoe.
Me too.
And then I realized it's two shoes.
yeah.
like a pear.
Like a pair of shoes, like
Yeah.
goody two shoes. Anyways, back to you, Sean.
He was born in Ecuador.
Actually,
Oh, that's right. You just live there.
not true.
Dang it.
We try not to lie.
Yeah.
Too much.
Too much. I'm at that fun place where your parents just ask you what you want for Christmas, but then you have to wait to get it. And for the first time ever, I'm about to own a pair of non-Vans
Whoa.
upon my own
Is
request.
that a brand? Non-van?
Non-Vans,
Non-Vans.
otherwise known as Birkenstocks.
Whoa!
I know.
Is it the one with the? Does
Sean's
it
gonna
cup,
be a
does it cup
Birk
the
guy.
toe?
I know.
Are you gonna wear socks?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Yes. Weird. I've never owned sandals. This is my first pair of.
Rainbows? You're from Orange
No,
County.
I've never owned an open-toed shoe.
I don't know what to do with this information.
Do your toes know what daylight looks like?
Also,
No, they're very pale.
your levels are peaking there.
I'm really excited.
Your voice is so loud.
I'm gonna move away from this.
Oh, Burke guy.
I know.
You're gonna be a Burke guy.
I just think they're gonna be so helpful.
Sean goes to college, starts studying theology, buys Birkenstocks. That's
That
where
is
we
a
are.
meme.
I'm a noob.
That's where we are. What I'm most excited for,
Yeah.
Paige and I are doing Christmas on Saturday. So yesterday, we already did Christmas. We're filming on Friday. It's for in all transparency. But so by the time, my point is, by the time this airs, Paige will have already opened this present. But I'm really excited. I bought her 2 cookbooks from like her favorite
Nice.
cookbook gal, Half Baked Harvest, shout out. And then I got her like all the equipment to make your own pasta, to do like your own in-home pasta.
Ooh, like one of those
That
rolly
is awesome.
long things.
Yeah, and then I hired a professional chef, and he's coming to our house on January 22nd,
Wow.
and he's gonna do a whole like cooking class, like
So
a taste of
cool.
Italia, and
So cool.
we're gonna do like an in-home experience of making your own pasta.
Oh,
I'm
and
so
you invited
stoked.
us to that, I think.
You can have the leftovers.
Okay.
I'll make sure I save some for you in the fridge. But
Wow.
yeah, I'm
That's really
super
cool.
stoked. It's fun. She like knocked my Christmas present out of the park this year, and so I had to step my game up a little bit. But anywho, what's looking back on 9-10 this year, we were reminiscing a little bit that Sahale was this year. Mm-hmm. Like we went to winter camp
It was like our
with our
last
current
big
sophomores.
thing.
They used to be freshmen. Yeah, like a month after Sahale.
Whoa.
We were
Gone, like masks on. That's nuts. And Sahale was such this awesome experience, like bonding with our leaders and our sophomores at the time, our freshmen that are now our sophomores. And it's so crazy to think that we've introduced a whole new class now into 9-10. And I'm so stoked on this new freshman class coming up and leaning in. And like the one thing I know about our freshman class is that if they're choosing to lean into like video podcasts like this and like coming to fuel when it's 48 degrees outside and doing life group and listening to sermons and junk like that, it's like you gotta have some serious commitment to lean into that. And I'm so proud of this class for stepping up and into this half-baked 9-10 that isn't what it is. Like we can't do weekends and we can't do camps like we used to, and yet it's really cool to watch God move in and through our leaders and in and through these students that are choosing to come week in and week out. And yeah, just for you guys in the last maybe 3-4 months as we've walked through these series, what do you feel like just gets you stoked about 9-10 as we wrap up this year right now?
That's a great question.
You want to go?
Floor is yours.
Oh, that gets me stoked. Gosh, I would say when I think about seasons of life, when you come out of them, you know, you look back and you're like, that was really challenging, but that was really good. And I feel like hopefully by leaning in and by having all the support that we have within 9-10, 2021 gets to be one of those years when you look back and you're like, wow, this last year was so hard, but look where God carried us. And so I think that's a perspective I always hope to have, but it's really hard when you're in the thick of it. And I know, like, even just talking with my girls and the sophomore class that went from this Sahale experience as freshmen and now into just a very different sophomore year. And I'm sure you freshmen are experiencing it too, not walking down the halls in high school, what you expected like it to be. But I just feel like when I look back at who God is, he always proves himself so faithful. And my stoked level is for 9-10 to continue to cling to that hope and that promise that like we will get through this, whether it looks how we want it to or not. And so, you know, they always say, I don't know where it's from. It's just a golden rule type thing, but it's like good things around the corner. And that sounds cheesy, but there always is, even though it might not be necessarily what we think. And so I'm stoked for that. And I think our students are persevering through a lot. And whether they think it's like, you can't look back and compare yourself to other seasons and be like, look how fast I ran then. And like, look how, not metaphorically, like, look how many miles I grew in that season of life. And even something like Sahale, it's really easy to be like, that was such a powerful weekend. But now maybe this whole 9 months, you moved an inch closer to the Lord. But that is like so worthy of celebrating too. And so I think, yeah, it just makes me stoked for our students to continue to see that like, every single step does count, and there will be harvest at the end of it. I just needed to finish that half-baked thing that you said, because there will be harvest. So I feel like there's a good name she has going on there. So the harvest will come in 2021.
Half-baked harvest, actually.
Sean, what about you?
I feel like I was thinking a lot about this. I'm going to stay away from this because I'm so loud.
There's a happy medium, you know?
And it's right here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just feel like even last Wednesday, and we texted about this, but it just felt good. And it felt like there was a comfort in the crowd of, like, we're starting to learn what NineTen looks like right now and how it operates. And it just felt really comfortable. And I think in that there's a lot of opportunity for us to, like, trust each other, trust leadership from, like, students to leaders. And even for us, just, like, it finally feels like, yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it took a little bit to, like, click that we had a new class. Like, it took a long time for me to, like, associate myself with the freshman class. And that's a little bit vulnerable and honest there. But I feel like now there's a ton of comfort in knowing, like, cool, like, we have a crew of students that are ready to listen and open up their Bibles and listen to the Word of God. So even just, like, feeling that in my group, but then hearing stories from some of these new freshman groups about kind of the progress and the decisions and steps that were being made, I think there's just an excitement to see the return in 2021 and just go, like, let's dive into NineTen. And yeah, looking back at some of the things that we've done in previous years, like, I'm really excited to open that up with this new class, and just see some of those decisions and steps and, like, disciplines walked into. Yeah, I'm excited to have a crew that's ready to do what NineTen does.
It's cool. I just want to, I was reading this today, and I think it's a cool way to end the year for us as NineTen, and it's in Ephesians, which is fitting for our series. It's Ephesians 5:15. And this is right after the passage that we've talked about this a handful of times in NineTen, but he uses the analogy of sleeping. He says, "Wake up, O sleeper, and rise from the dead," right? And Christ will shine on you. Of this, it's almost this, like, this call to snap out of it, right? Mm-hmm. That so much of even the Proverbs and so much of wisdom literature talks about the dangers of drifting and the dangers of just kind of fading into mediocrity when it comes to your relationship with God. And I love this call from Paul. He's like, wake up, like, wake up, O sleeper. Like, when we feel, and this is such a symptom of COVID, right? Not like of the sickness, but of the season, is it's like kind of this, like, mediocre, meh. Yeah. It's like, how you doing? Yeah. Right. Like, and it's, we almost feel numb, right? We feel, and if we're not careful when we feel numb, we lean into the things that are numbing, right? Social media can be so numbing, right? Netflix can be numbing, Hulu, Amazon Prime, whatever it is. Like, we can just kind of lean into the video games and we just kind of, and then you just deeper and deeper into this fade. And then we wonder why we don't feel close to God. We wonder why our relationships with God are suffering. And this is me, right? Like, I'm looking into the mirror teaching this. And I love the call where he says, "Wake up, O sleeper, and rise from the dead." And then he says this in verse 15. He says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as the unwise, but as the wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit." Right? And I realize that for most of us, the struggle is probably not, like, getting drunk on wine, right? You're not, like, you don't read that and then underline the "don't get drunk on wine" and you're like, dang it, Paul, like, that's me, right? Like, most of us in NineTen, you're like, yeah, thanks, Paul. Like, most of us, that's not our struggle, right? And it's totally fine if that is, but I think he's talking a little bit differently, more on the side of what does getting drunk on wine do, and then what's the direct opposite comparison, right? He says, don't get drunk on the wine. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. So he's like, instead, like, get drunk on the Spirit, which is kind of a weird thing to think about. But, like, when you get drunk on wine, you don't get drunk, and then that drunkenness is just forever. Now you are drunk because of the wine that you drank. And so it's the opposite of instead being filled with the Spirit. It's this active daily filling, going, be very careful how you live. Be very careful how you walk today. Be very careful how you wake up this morning. Be very careful how you go throughout your day. Live as the wise, not as the unwise, and be filled by the Spirit. And I think probably the biggest challenge for me in this, and I'd kind of love to almost end this episode with this, of what's over the next 2 weeks that we're not meeting, right? The 2 Wednesdays that we're not meeting, the 2 weekends that we don't have 910 stuff going on. What is as 910 staff, what is our challenge for our students? For me, the challenge for myself and the challenge for us who are engaged in this video podcast would be very careful how you go through today. Like let the intentionality be seen in your day. Don't drift, right? Don't wake up today. Because for me, if I don't like wake up with intentionality, it's so easy for me to just drift through my morning and like wake up and look on my phone and like scroll through some stuff and then kind of, go out into the living room, have a bowl of cereal, sit down, watch a show, hop on my computer, and then before I know it, like several hours have passed and I'm like, if somebody was like, hey, what'd you do for the last 3 hours? I'd be like, and I love the challenge here to be very careful how you live, be very careful how you walk through today, to be filled by the Spirit. What does that look like? I think it just starts with intentionality of what does it look like to open up God's word and to do it with your life group, right? To do it with your life group leader. I guarantee every single one of our life group leaders, if any of you as students texted them and went like, hey, over the next 2 weeks, I'd love to walk through a book of the Bible. I'd love to read some scripture. Like they'd be stoked on that. And I think it'd be convicting for them as well, right? Because I think for all of us, that can be a struggle. Or, hey, I want to spend some time. Like I love that Corey said this on Wednesday. If he starts his like quiet time, like actually just sitting there taking inventory of his thoughts. And man, I think we'd all be better off if we just spent time sitting in stillness, like no headphones, no Bible, and just try to take inventory of your thoughts. Where am I at right now? Like what's going on? How am I actually doing? So I love that challenge personally, and I think it's a good challenge for all of us. And I think that's a good challenge for all of us to just be intentional, be very careful how you live. So maybe just as we wrap up for you guys in hearing this passage, even just in thinking about the next 2 weeks, what would you push our 910 community to be aware of?
I think the first thing that came to mind, I was like, oh my gosh, they don't have school. And if I think about one thing that's been like really weighing on so many of you, whether we talk to leaders or just from personal conversations, it's like, you guys are experiencing something that is so, like, I can't even relate. I did maybe one online class ever, and that was by choice in college, and I did not love it. So to have my entire high school experience online, I'm sure that's, like, totally throwing a wrench in whatever you thought your school experience was going to look like. And so I think right now is going to be really interesting because it's kind of like at the beginning of COVID, like you set all these goals. Oh, I'm going to read. I'm going to get really good at puzzles. I'm going to start all these crafts. I'm going to read I'm going to work out every day. And so I think the real test is if you're not doing those things now when you have ample amount of time, would you have ever really done them? And we set those goals. And so I really just want to encourage our students of like, man, if you don't have school right now, take that as such a huge blessing to be able to peel back, analyze, like, how am I really doing, so that when you do walk back in to school, metaphorically, again, because you're probably behind a screen, but like you are prepared and you're like, you know what, I made the most of those 2 weeks because I said, I don't have time to read my Bible when I'm in school. Great. You don't have school now. Like the Lord is waiting. He's ready. He wants to spend that time with you. And so, and I would say finding fun, unique ways to do that, whether that's asking your parents how they're doing in this holiday season and having real honest conversations with them because they're going through a pandemic too. And I think we can learn a lot about, one, the posture of our own heart in this season and the other people around us. And I think something right now is just, we all want to be encouraged. We're all looking for some level of motivation. And so seeking out those friends or those family members that you can have those conversations with, ask how they're really doing, and then also be sitting and thinking like, okay, what kind of person do I want to be going into this next stage?
Yeah. I think for myself, towards you guys would be a challenge of, I love the following verse after verse 19. It says, starting in verse 19, but it says, speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. I think there's that like encouragement for community there. And I think that would be like as the men's director and obviously to the girls as well. But I would hate to see like a break from life group because Wednesdays weren't happening for the next 2 weeks. And I think like there's sometimes this pressure that like the community and the conversations and the encouragement and like the prayers of like life group only exist on Wednesdays. And yet I think there's such a cool opportunity to spend the next 2 weeks really like pushing the boundary of small group. And I love like sitting with my group last Wednesday, we all came up with just a bunch of challenges to work on. And like one of my guys wants to read his Bible twice a day. So we've been texting each other and myself getting to join in on that with him. And then another one who's like, for the next 2 weeks, I just want to play worship music because I don't feel like I worship that much. And then another one who's texting an individual person in our group every day, just something that he needs prayer for, just to like work on vulnerability. And those things don't have to happen just on Wednesdays. So I think that would be, my heart and my like challenge for you guys is to lean into your life group, not just because they exist on Wednesdays, but because they are a group of like-minded believers who love you and are for you. And then as well as like your leaders, like if Wednesdays are the only time you're talking to your leaders, I think you're missing how much they love you. And like, like there's not a day that doesn't go by where I'm thinking about one of my guys or like the freshman class or like even some of the stuff like what are Char's girls going through, and like just like I'm constantly thinking about you guys. And I think like, and some of you aren't even my like individual life group students, so I think like let that speak volumes to how much your leaders love you. And I think the more that you can take advantage of that the next 2 weeks, man, I just think there'd be so many cool developments in your walk with Jesus if you were to lean into that.
Totally. That's awesome. Dang. Can't believe this is the last video of 2020, y'all. But, oh no. Look, my glasses.
Oh.
I'm going to put them on. Boom. As we finish.
Boom.
Bam. 9-10, y'all.
2020 vision.
2020.
What a year.
What a year it was. What a year. 2021 coming at you. January 6th, we're back in person.
We love y'all.
We love you guys.
Adios,
Bye.
9-10.